Shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can pull that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, what's going on, Pete's, man? We're back in the building, guys. As always, man, as always, please make sure you are smashing the like button, sharing and subscribing to the damn channel. Obviously, today we're going to be taking a look at MATHEUS Cunha, yes, the Wolves attacker. He's on everybody's hit list for the summer. He's on everybody's hit list for this summer. He's having a really, really good season for Wolves. Obviously, Wolves are not doing too well, not doing too well, but he himself is obviously having a really, really good season. God, I remember, just before we dive into it, I remember MATHEUS Cunha, was he at what, at 𝐓𝐇𝐀𝐃 Madrid? And yeah, obviously then moved to Wolves, and it was kind of like, all right, cool. But I don't think anyone took any real notice, of that, in regards to him, right? But yeah, to be honest with you, this season, he just seems to be, it's weird because he's having a really good season, but Wolves are not having that good of a season, kind of thing. So of course it's going to stand out a lot more than it would do, for anybody else, kind of thing. And, he's spoken, earlier on in the season, about, potentially staying at Wolves. Obviously, we know that he signed a new deal. This is something that he said. It was posted out by the BBC Sport. I never think about leaving Wolves, honestly. I know I have a lot of things to do already, and I always said that this was the club that gave me the chance to come back. They opened the door for me, and I always felt I wanted to give back everything. So to leave in this type of situation is hard. I am so happy to be here. I hope to continue doing good things. Famous last words, as they say, famous last words. Listen, as I said before, this season, obviously, with what he's been doing and stuff like that, of course, he's going to have a lot of suitors. As I mentioned before, he did sign a new deal. It's got a release clause included in that deal, which is available in the summer of 2025. So this summer, £62.5 million. And yeah, as I say, it could be triggered in the summer. So at least now Wolves know, I can't remember how much they actually signed him for, but at least now they know, okay, you know what? This is how much it's going to cost, regardless. He signed the new deal. So even if he wanted to leave, if any club that is going to bid under that, we're not going to sell. And I think there's that kind of mutual kind of agreement. And I know, I say I know, but I think, with a lot of these players, I think they look at it and think to themselves, yeah, like if we could get something in that kind of agreement, for ourselves. So yeah, I might not, like, of course, he's going to want to leave and he's going to want to, go to pastures new and things like that. He wants, the biggest of honors, and rightly so. Do you know what I mean? If you're performing well enough to be able to be in those conversations, then why not? And, teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, heck, Manchester United, and all these kind of clubs in England, let alone outside of England, they're all looking for potentially a player like this, a player who can, operate in those kind of positions that they potentially need going forward. We know that he can hit the back of the net as well, and he scored some really wonderful goals this season. So, yeah, I think this is best for both parties, to be honest with you, because the reality is if Wolves can stay up, if they can stay up, at least they can keep him in, their team moving on, for next season, and then, take it from there. As you guys can obviously see here, look, ultimately, look, as I mentioned before, let's go back there. He's had a really good season. 27 games, got 14 goals, and he's got himself 4 assists, 18 GA in 27 games, for a team like Wolves is crazy, to be honest with you. And you can see the kind of positions that, he's been operating, in this, well, over the last, since the 23-24 season. You can see he's been involved in 36 goals. So that's 25 goals. So what's that? Last season, at this point, by the end of last season, should I say, he had, what if he's got 14 now, then he was at 11. So last season he got himself 11 goals, and he's got 7 more assists, in terms of, adding up for this season. So yeah, I think for someone like Wolves, or a team like Wolves, this would be a lot of goal involvement. You know, they lost Neto, they've lost Diogo Jota before that as well. So that's 2 players straight off the back. Ruben Neves obviously kept it moving to Saudi Arabia, and now potentially Matheus Cunha. And so, of course, from their perspective, they're thinking, well, we're going to need to get a bit of money for this, because if not, then, you know, is there even any point? So that's why I think it's quite clever that he was willing to sign a new deal. Obviously, we don't know backstories and things like that, but at least he was willing to sign a new deal, and they can kind of move with it, you know, from there, you know, from their kind of perspective. If I'm being totally honest with you, you can see here, you look how he kind of compares to everybody else in the league. You know, possession one, and I think that was one of the things that I really wanted to take a look at today, you know, with Matheus Cunha. Is you can see here, look, possession one in the final third. He's ranked 8th in the Premier League. Ground duels 1. You know, that's a lot for an attacker. We're not talking about a defender here. We're talking about an attacker. He's won 103, which puts him 7th. You know, duels 1, it puts him 19th in the league. Counter pressures puts him 16th. Sprinting pressure distance, 1,740, which puts him 13th. Again, testament to the way that Wolves play, but also a testament, you know, to Matheus Cunha, you know, himself. And you can see since, you know, playing under, you know, Gary O'Neill, who kind of really birthed Matheus Cunha into the player that we're kind of seeing now. And listen, I felt like, you know, that, you know, Gary O'Neill was doing a good job, and I felt that they were very unlucky, you know, especially at the beginning of the season. I mean, some of the fixtures that they had, and we're not talking, this is Wolves at the end of the day. So we're talking about a team that, of course, it's going to be difficult if your first few games of the season are against the likes of the Liverpools, the Arsenals, City, man, all of these kind of teams. For you to try and have a good start to the season and build up some level of momentum, it's always going to be difficult. But you can see here in terms of like the positionings that, you know, someone like Matheus Cunha kind of takes up. You can see for Gary O'Neill, you can see that it's all quite similar. You know, he was kind of, obviously he's on that left-hand side, and he likes to drift infield, and you can see he's even got that centre midfield spot where, you know, of course, he's dropping deep to pick up the ball. But now you can see under, you know, Vitor Pereira, you can see that it's not so much about him dropping deep anymore, because they've probably realized, look, at the end of the day, we need to get this guy further up the field. We need to get him in and around goal. You know, of course, in some games, yes, he's going to need to, you know, drop deep just to help out the midfield and things like that, just to, you know, defensively. And as you saw with his stats, you know, his stats are really, really good. So again, I guess it's like I've said for all these kind of other players, you know, in terms of if you can potentially translate some of those things into a team that plays somewhat similar, you know, a team that needs a player who can win possession in his final third, he's good at counter pressures and things like that, then of course it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And, you know, if we can get him in and around goal, I mean, we saw it against Liverpool, you know, the goal that he did score, you know, fantastic goal, you know, to, you know, potentially get Wolves back into the game. Obviously, they ended up losing the game anyway, but that was a fantastic goal. And those are the kind of little things that, you know, he can actually, you know, kind of do. And you can see here just with, you know, the positionings, you know, of Wolves and the way that they like to build up and things like that, you know, this season. Again, I feel like Matheus Cunha obviously is vitally important, you know, towards that. And it's the areas that of the pitch that he does like to pick up the ball, which I think are very key. And I think that for me is always going to be the part where I look at and think to myself, okay, if you go to a team like Arsenal, if you go to a team like Liverpool, like Manchester City, can they get him in the right areas? Because ultimately, and it's funny because, you know, we've been having conversations about different players and how good are they really, you know, playing for these clubs and things like that. But you go to a bigger club where you're coming up against low blocks more or less often than not. You don't have that much space all the time to be able to operate. Of course, not every team's going to do that, but, you know, you're going to face those kind of opponents more so. Whereas here at Wolves, you're going to have a bit more freedom. You're going to have these areas of spaces that you guys can obviously see highlighted on the screen. You're going to have that. You know, so if you're going to have all of these areas to operate in, obviously he's going to be able to show his quality, right? And, you know, rightly so, he's doing that. But at a team like Liverpool, team like Arsenal, who play a bit differently, you know, to a team like Wolves and are a bigger team. So when teams face them, of course, they're a bit more cautious, you know, with it. Is he going to be able to, you know, showcase exactly, you know, what he can do? And he is someone who likes to progress the play really, really well. You know, he does like to pick up the ball from these kind of deep areas and then push up the field. But again, that's because of the team that he's in, you know, what his role and what his task is. If you can get him to do that similar thing, then of course. And even in transition, at times you've seen with Wolves, you know, in terms of the way that they build up from the back as well, whether it's under Gary O'Neill or Pereira, you can see that he then becomes vitally important. I've seen him operating, you know, we saw with his heat map and things like that, you know, on that left-hand side. Yeah, those are the areas he wants to be picking up the ball in, whether it's in space or whether it's with a defender, you know, right on him. He wants to be picking up the ball in those kind of areas. And I think that this season he's got a bit more smarter, in my personal opinion, with when he does pick up the ball in those kind of areas. Obviously, it's a lot more vital because you may not have as many opportunities as you would do at a Liverpool or at an Arsenal, Chelsea, whatever, because those teams, obviously, you know, they're good enough to keep creating those opportunities for you. So at Wolves, I feel like this season, especially because they're not doing so well, it's become, okay, I need to take that leadership role. We've seen him, you know, captain in the side as well. So I need to take a bit more of that leadership role. I need to, you know, understand that when I get the ball, everybody's looking to me to be the Mo Salah, you know, of my team, which is I need to be able to create, I need to be able to score, I need to be able to get into behind, I need to, you know, be able to make space for other players and things like that. And, you know, that these are the kind of little things that I think that, you know, he's been doing. And again, defensively, I think that he's also been pretty good as well. And I mean, the stats kind of prove it, if I'm being super honest with you. I mean, I go back to this again and, you know, it's really, really good that he's, you know, the counter pressures, duels one, ground duel, like these are things that they're picking up on. And it's crazy because we're not even looking here at his attacking stats. We're talking more about his defensive work, you know, and in these teams that you play for, especially, you know, if we're just talking Liverpool as an example, we know what Arne Slot wants. He wants someone who's going to work both on and off the ball. Are you going to help the team? Are you going to get back? You know, are you going to be able to defend when we need you to defend? You know, kind of thing. In those moments, in those games when we're coming up against a Brentford, Mbeumo, Vissa, you know, you're coming up against Aston Villa, Rashford, Asensio, and, you know, etc., etc. We need you to be able to come back and help out. Can you do that? He's shown so far this season that he can do that. So for me, I think it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. I've spoken about Cunha before. I've spoken about him, you know, Joao Pedro and, you know, players of that kind of ilk. Do I think he's ready for the next step? I do. Where that next step is, I don't know. And for me, it needs to be the right environment. I look at more, you know, potentially Arsenal, Liverpool. Those are the two teams that, if we're just talking Premier League in general, unless Man City decide to sell Doku or something like that, then yeah, you might have a space for him on the left wing. But if not, then yeah, Arsenal, Liverpool. Arsenal, of course, because that left-hand side is it's a bit like Liverpool's, to be fair. It's not really cemented with anybody. Martinelli is their kind of guy. You know, he's the kid that they really want to obviously push through. But if I'm being honest, he doesn't provide anywhere near as a bigger goal threat as someone like Matheus Cunha, who's actually dangerous in and outside of the box. Whereas I don't feel like Martinelli carries that same kind of threat. Trossard is another one who, you know, is he good? Is he not good? Is he impact player? Is he a starter? Like, it's too many questions around that. I feel like someone like Cunha could come in there, you know, potentially, you know, and again, all across the front three, where he can then start to rotate with other players in there and still be comfortable doing so, or play up front if they need him to, in that kind of false nine, Havertz kind of role, where you still want the player to be able to drop deep. You still want him to be able to link up with Ødegaard, with a Declan Rice, with a Partey, and players of that kind of ilk. I feel like he can do that. And again, at Liverpool, it's kind of the same thing. We've seen that left wing. Yes, Gakpo is probably taking it this season, but is it guaranteed? I don't really know. And even if it's not, he can still go up front. And again, Arne Slot wants his attackers to be able to drop deep, pick up the ball, link up play, help out there. Obviously, I feel like a lot of that's going to be dependent on if Mo Salah stays. I still think if you sign a Cunha, you're going to still need to sign someone on the right side if Mo Salah was to go. But ultimately, you have that player there. And for 62.5 million, I don't think it's a crazy amount of money, you know, that you're going to be asked, like you're going to be paying for someone who's Premier League proven, and it looks like they're ready for that next step. He's got good ball control, good striking ability. He knows how to operate in those forward areas, in those pockets of spaces as well. You know, he seems to be smart enough to play false nine and can also just stick up there if you needed him to. But I feel like he's more of the modern day type of forward more than anything. I won't even say striker, but just modern day forward, which is, you know, being able to do a lot of things in his game. You know, he has to have a lot of facets to his game. I feel like he's got that, you know. So yeah, like I say, but for me, one of the main things is his defensive work. that's probably what will save him going to a club like Arsenal, like a Liverpool, is defensively, he seems to be pretty good. And that's for a Wolves team that comes under pressure quite a bit. So you go to a better team, what's that going to look like? But of course, we'll wait and see when it does come to Matheus Cunha. Let me know your thoughts on Cunha, himself. Is that a player that you would wish to see at your club? What do you think his next move is going to be, heading into next season? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people. And we are out.